This is the lecture for Bernard Williams's Realism and Moralism in Political Theory. So, three topics starting with the first one, liberalism. So, a lot of this essay is talking about or concerned with liberalism, and so it will help to have a basic overview of liberalism. So, what is liberalism? Well, it's an approach to political philosophy, to political theory that sort of centers on or foregrounds the importance of individual freedom, or freedom at least. Uh, Freedom, like that, the name of liberalism comes from the idea of freedom. So if you think of like liberation or liberty, these are talking about freedom. Liberty is a synonym for freedom. So liberalism is sort of its foundation is liberty. And the thought is that for the liberal, freedom is the most important thing. So the liberal wants to secure freedom for people in society, freedom for everybody in society. And that's the most basic understanding of liberalism. And pretty much every, well, I don't know, most conceptions of liberalism are sort of especially concerned with individual freedom in the sense of freedom for each individual person, so that people have various freedoms that should not be compromised by the state, or that the state should secure, or that should be secured in a broader sense. And so that's liberalism at its most basic. And we're going to see much more discussion of liberalism as we read this article and then as we go further in the class. But we've already actually seen quite a bit of discussion of liberalism, because if you think back to Rawls and the two principles of justice, the first principle of justice is that everybody needs should be secured equal basic liberties compatible with the same liberties for everybody else. And so notice the word liberties there, liberties being central to liberalism. Those are the freedoms that liberalism is talking about. So when Rawls wants people to have the maximum number of equal basic liberties, that shows that his theory is a liberal theory, because that's the first principle of justice. That's the most important principle of justice. So Rawls has a liberal theory of justice, and I think that's as much as we need to say about liberalism for now. Again, we're going to get more in this Williams article and more as we go through the semester. Topic number 2. So you may recall we covered normativity when in the lecture on Estland, but it shows up again in this article. And Williams is actually using normativity in a slightly more narrow sense. It actually doesn't matter, but I do want to talk about it because he sort of directly contradicts something I said in the previous lecture, because he's using it in the more narrow sense. And so let's just see that. On page 10, he talks about an illuminating question. It doesn't matter what the question is, one that is certainly evaluative but not normative. And in the last lecture, I said normative and evaluative were synonyms. And usually they are. The reason they're not in the way Williams is using the word normative is he is using the word normative in a more narrow sense to talk about what we ought to do. So for Williams, normativity is about what you should do, what you ought to do, how you should act. And so that's more narrow than broadly evaluative stuff. Evaluative stuff includes how you ought to act, what you ought to do, but it also includes like what is good and bad, even if that has no relation to what you should do, or what's better or worse, even if that has no relation to what you should do. So again, this doesn't matter. Like this doesn't actually like it's no big deal. But this is just to clear up a confusion you might have, and also just to highlight what, like, normativity includes a bunch of stuff, but like for Williams, the main thing when it comes to normativity is in terms of what you ought to do, how you ought to act, what you should do. And so that's, for him, the normative questions are going to be those. And so you'll see him talk quite a bit about that in this article. And then finally, on the next page, 11, somewhere on this page. Oh, whoops, wrong page. Yeah, so he talks about MS, so you'll figure out what MS is when you read it. It is a category of historical understanding, which we can call, if we like, a hermeneutical category. So just, hermeneutical is a big word and you maybe haven't seen it before. Hermeneutical just means like having to do with understanding and interpretation. So focusing on like what it means to understand things and what it means to interpret things and the sort of principles according to which we do this. So a category of historical understanding, you can understand why he would call it a hermeneutical category, because it's a category about understanding, how we sort of understand things historically. Um, so this isn't a big deal, but again, when you find unfamiliar words, sometimes that can make you confused, and so this is just to clear up that word.